follows. You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. Understand the context on this. He's basically asking his disciples right before he goes to his own death. He's asking his disciples to trust him, to have trust. And in today's world, sometimes that trust is really hard, especially for us as investors. Think about this. Just over the last 7 days, we've seen the stock market yo-yo, up and down, left, right. And why is that? Well, because the president says one thing, there's a tariff, there's this, there's that, there's uncertainty everywhere. And these unforeseen market changes that are happening right now, sometimes we make an investment, we just have to have trust. We have to have trust that the stability of the US economy is fundamentally going to be well over the long term. We have to have trust that the teams that we invest in or the companies or products that we get behind, they're going to make it long term. We have to be able to have that. Additionally, there's this whole complexity that we have to navigate. Right now, today, we're going to be going through a lot of the complexities in the market. We're going to cover inflation. We're going to cover tariffs. We're going to cover interest rates. We're even going to touch on this whole climate change that could affect real estate valuations. So we're going to go through all this and just know that the verse suggests that even if we don't grasp everything right now, if we don't have all the knowledge right at our fingertips, the knowledge that we can gain, it's going to contribute to a deeper understanding of later events that might unfold. So we got to have a little bit of trust in the process or trust the experts. All right, Chris, I'll toss it to you for a quick blessing, my friend.
Heavenly Father, first and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge who you are in my life. Please bless us so that we can deliver a message of not only your presence, but a message of good, positive instruction so that the people that are hearing our voices today or seeing us on the internet can become good stewards of the things that you bless them with and can learn some things today that help them put them at ease when it comes to their finances, to invest in the future so that they have a future that's stable and joyous and free. I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, man. Okay, we have a lot to cover. I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to go over to the economy. This is our president right now. He's standing up for what he believes is right, and he's implementing a couple of different things. Number one, he's basically threatening our two neighbor countries, Canada and Mexico, that they're going to have tariffs if they don't help fight the flow of drugs and illegal traffic and things like that. In addition to that, he's slamming our Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, and he's saying, hey, look, Fed chairman, you still have inflation happening. This inflation is because of what you guys did during the last term. You need to stand up and lower interest rates. You need to do something. You need to ease up things in the economy. And instead, Jerome Powell just played it cool. Last week when they got together, they said, no hike, no lowering. We're going to leave things flat. Chris, your take.
Oh my gosh. So I don't know how to say this without sounding political, and I'm not going to reveal my political beliefs, but what the heck is Trump thinking? And I mean that in the most loving way I can, because while I understand his message, right? I tend to agree with what he's saying, but why is he backing this man against the wall so that he does nothing? He has nothing to do except stand up for himself and she's going to show Trump who's boss, right? And I don't think that's any way to win this war. A spoonful of sugar would have helped this medicine go down for Jerome Powell a lot better than the public threats, right? It wasn't even private; it's public. So what's this guy going to do? You know, this guy who's got an ego the size of Trump's, what's he going to do? Cower and say, yes, Mr. Trump, I'm going to do it right now? No, I don't see that happen. I think that while I believe it's the right decision, we need to lower this. We need to get the economy rolling again. I think the way that the message was delivered was just a mistake. This is going to become just like you said, a standoff, and they're going to, instead of them dropping a half a point in March, they're going to drop it a quarter point. Oh, we're doing it because we have to. There's nothing that he's going to want to do now that's going to make Trump look good. Like if he lowers the interest rates a point, economy stimulates, all of a sudden it's President Trump's triumph. He's not going to do that. So like the message, hate the delivery.
That's a good way to point it. I might disagree slightly on this. I think that We know that Trump is Trumpian. It's funny,
Yeah.
my father and I, we have debates on politics a lot. Maybe that's not a good father-son topic, but we debate a lot. And he's like, he said to me last time, he said, "You love Trump." And I said, "No, no, no. I like business policies that help get this economy moving in the right direction. And if he tailored his speech the right way, I might love the man. But unfortunately, the way that he says things and does things, it's not the way that I would do it." And so I think I agree with you in that aspect. He should not have done that publicly. It shouldn't have been that way. But I also think that Trump is just Trump. He's just going to do it his way. He's not going to change. And so now the cards are going to fall where they fall. Here's the take, though, that I think we should give everybody for us as real estate investors. If the interest rates go up, it actually is okay for us.
Mhm.
If the interest rates go down, it's okay for us. And let me explain why. Chris, you can add to this because you're really a finance guru. If interest rates go up more, what it does is it puts downward pressure on sellers that are holding real estate right now that were thinking about exiting. If interest rates go up, the next buyer coming into that deal is forced to pay less. And therefore, you can get stuff at discounted prices. That's why today we're buying properties right now at less than the cost that they would be to replace them. If they needed to be built all over again from the ground up, we're buying them for less than that. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that rates are higher today than they were 2 years ago. Chris, what do you feel on that? If rates go up, what happens to us?
All right, so there's the old real estate adage, date the rate, marry the property, right? So we know at some point this is going to change. So as rates escalate, and as long as listen, this is important, as long as you're having fixed rate financing, you have predictable costs moving forward. So if you can make a property work at today's fixed rate financing, then it'll work tomorrow because you'll have the same loan, the same rate, not variable. But since we're only dating the rate and the rate is only a season, it's eventually going to drop. And then when it drops, you refinance, you've got the property at a discount because you had to pay, the higher interest rate for a little bit, forcing the price of property down. Now we've got a grand slam, right? So we got a good property at a high rate and amazing property at the refinance rate. But you've got to understand that this comes with experience. Like you can't buy your first property and expect this to happen. That doesn't happen that way. You've got to find the right deal. You've got to suss it out. You've got to make sure all your ducks in a row, and then you actually have a deal that will cash flow from day one at the higher rate.
Bingo. Cash flow from day one. Don't buy negative leverage, as we talked about last week. You don't want negative stuff. You want positive cash flow day number one. Hey, so I'm going to cover something on just the consumer prices and inflation in general, but we want to hear from you sitting at home or in the office right now. What do you think? Do you think that this pressure that Trump is putting on the Fed is good or bad? Just type good or bad in the comments. I'd love to know from you. Do you think that the way he's doing it is good or bad? There's not a wrong answer. I just want to get a quick consensus on this. And as I'm doing that, let's talk a little bit about what the Fed's actually facing. The Fed is facing right now what they call inherent stubborn inflation. Prices are still going up, whether we like it or not. You go to the grocery store, you go to the gas pumps, you see it, you feel it yourself. Prices have not settled. We had one of our tenants in one of our properties this morning was texting just about their financial situation, basically explaining like, hey, at the end of the month, I barely have enough to buy a dozen eggs. And they were explaining about all these price hikes and Social Security not keeping up with the price hikes. So it's a very real thing. So when the Fed has to make a decision, do I lower, do I stay, do I raise? They have to keep this in their mind. And what theoretically will kill inflation is to raise rates. That's why they rose up the rates so fast over the last couple of years. But obviously Trump, for his economy and his administration, he wants it to go the other way. He wants the economy lit on fire. He wants money moving. So that would mean lower the rates. In my humble opinion, I don't think the Fed's going to listen. I think that they will keep doing what they're doing independent of him, and that's what they're supposed to do anyways. Okay, let's go to the next part. So we just got done with one of the biggest conferences in the multifamily housing industry, and there were some key takeaways that happened at the conference. This is held every year by National Multifamily Housing Council. They bring together the biggest operators in the space, 6,000 plus apartment building owners in one setting. And then they basically discuss what people are facing. What does the future look like? And there were three big takeaways from that. Chris, you want to talk about the construction downturn that's happening right now and why builders aren't building like they used to?
Oh man, they can't. I know that sounds very curt and very funny, but let's talk about some of those things, right? So rates have gone through the roof, making it very difficult for developers to stay active in the market and to do anything with it. How do you get projects started if you can't get money to do it? It just doesn't happen. It's just not there. A lot of banks are stepping out of this space because it's just too risky, because investing in the development space is a lot of crystal ball stuff, right? You have all the data, but you're also predicting what's going to happen 2 years from now. You really don't know. So a lot of banks are stepping out. So what's going on is developers are turning to a model that we're very familiar with, which is the syndication model. They're actually going to, private equity. They're going to distinguished high net worth individuals for individual investment. They're going to private family offices to put this money together to build the buildings. It's become, they're trying to stay flexible and trying to keep things moving forward. But the reality is it slowed. I mean, we had a year of nothing going on, with as far as new starts. So what does that mean for us multifamily investors? It means that the value of our properties are going to continue to rise because there's no more inventory, right? And let's remember, the population continues to increase. People continue to turn 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they're moving out of mom and dad's house, and they're getting their own place. They have to have a place to go. High interest rates also affect them as a first-time home buyer. And so, yeah, so no new starts. It's stopped. Value of multifamily going up. It's cheaper to buy than it is to build at this point.
So for us, this is actually a good thing. This construction downturn, it's really good. We're not new apartment developers. We buy existing and add value to them. And so this is a music to our ears right now. So let's continue to watch this as we march forward. Cool. I'm going to flip gears over to a Trump admin pick. And this is who his pick is, Scott Cherner, who basically is going to be running HUD or in the housing mix, HUD secretary. And this man, he's a huge proponent of opportunity zones. Chris, what the heck is an opportunity zone and why is that good for us as real estate folks?
An opportunity zone is basically just what it sounds like. So they'll go into impoverished areas of town, invest a bunch of federal or state or even local money to bring that community back up by luring in new developers, new investors, all of that kind of thing. Because historically, as you improve a neighborhood, crime goes down. The values go up, crime goes down, and gets pushed outward. So that's what those sectors of the community are.
Cool. And if they do get extended from a tax deferral basis, check this out. So you guys are all familiar with like 1031 exchanges. That's when you buy a piece of real estate, you sell it, you make a monster profit, and instead of paying taxes, you immediately reinvest that money into another piece of real estate. Imagine being able to do that with your business. Imagine another asset if you didn't have to pay tax on it. If you 1031, but it's not called a 1031, but if you do the same actions with your business sale into a property that's in an opportunity zone, you could potentially defer that tax as well. There's time periods in which you have to leave it invested, but if you leave it invested for the right amount of time, you might never pay tax on that gain. So if Scott Cherner comes out the way that we think that he will, it's going to be a big boom and a big blessing for us as real estate folks. Scott Cherner is his name. Okay, the other big thing that came out of the conference that we didn't cover yet is the absorption rates. So the absorption rate, what that means in simple terms is you put out a new building, you either freshly renovate it or you put out new construction, all these units. The market has to have time to absorb all of the units. You have to have enough time to have tenants moving in. As an example, we're in the middle of renovating a building right now. We're going to release 16 units to the market. And to have the market absorb them or have tenants move into all of them, we know it's not going to happen overnight. We're giving our team a 90-day window to absorb all of those, to show it, to take in applications and to lease all of them up. And so what shocked the industry, this is a phenomenon at the conference, is that the absorption rate was at record high.
Yeah.
Everybody was just blown away by that. Chris, what do you think is going on? Why are, even though there's a lot of inventory out there, why are rental units still getting absorbed?
Okay, so a couple of things play into this. First of all, a couple of years ago, developers were smart enough to foresee that they got to stay away from the A-class assets, right? The amount of the population that can afford the A-class asset was diminishing, right? It's coming way down. It costs a lot more money to live, inflation. So what they did is they built more B-class units, and what that means is that that's more of what the guy making $50,000 to $60,000 a year, maybe $70,000 a year can easily afford and move into. Who are those guys? Those are the guys that maybe are not super skilled, but are semi-skilled, and they're into the government jobs, you know, that type of middle skilled type labor, where they're making that kind of money and they're able to afford those. So why is that important? Because that's what's happening right now, is a lot of those jobs are becoming available. So it's allowing these people to move out of mom and dad's house, right? They're making enough money to go get their first apartment. They can afford that B-class apartment. And so the absorption rate was just there. Post-COVID, a lot of those jobs were created, and they're here to stay. So as a result, that's where the absorption rate is primarily coming. That demographic right there is what absorbed a significant, like 80% of the new properties online. So that was what drove all that, and it was unexpected. Like, people didn't have their eye on that. We thought it was going to hit hard. We thought it was going to hit real hard, and prices were going to dump. But it's not the case at all.
Yeah, you've nailed it right there, Chris. If you guys want to dig into the article, it literally goes through and talks about these young men, primarily men, and without college degrees. They have middle-level jobs like government jobs and insurance, as Chris noted, and that is what's driving this absorption. Like, it's just getting sucked up. So for us, we're seeing it, we're feeling it right now too. We've got a property up in Georgetown, Kentucky that literally, since we bought it 3 months ago, we've churned 3 units, and we have a 4th one that we're about to churn. And rents have literally gone from $650 per unit to now over $1,000 per unit, just in this little window of time. And part of that is because we bought the property right, but you're just seeing it happen right now. Like, and primarily that fits the demographic of the tenants that we're talking about too. Young men.
I'd like to interject about that property is we're still below market. We're 5% below market on those rents. So we're not gouging anybody.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, Chris, I'm going to change gears on you a little bit. We're going to go through a little investment teaching tip, a little hack, literally a house hack. Chris, I know that you're probably long past your house hacking days, but what the heck is house hacking? We'll talk about the tax benefits of it in a second, but what is this concept?
Okay, so believe it or not, it's got this new, great, catchy name, but it's been going on forever. Every smart investor, or anybody that has any financial foresight would have done this. Like, you move out of mom and dad's house, you don't go buy a single family house, you buy a duplex. You live in one side, you rent out the other, and that house pays for itself, right? That's a housing hack. You take and you design your house or set up your house so you can rent a room. That's a housing hack, right? So now you've got additional income based on that one room, but there's a whole bunch of tax advantages. I'll get to them in a second because that applies across the category. And then, you know, everybody's heard of tiny homes, right? These little tiny homes. You buy a tiny home, put it on your property, and it's called a detached residential unit, I believe it's called. And now you rent that out for $600 a month. Now that's helping you pay your mortgage. Here's another hack. Buy a house with a guest house on property. Rent that out to Airbnb or something else. There's another hack. All of these things are hacks. And again, wealth has 2 sides of the coin, right? How much you make, but also how much you save. Now that you're doing rentals, you now have a whole bunch of tax advantages that you didn't have before. Let's say you rent out a duplex, you rent out half of it, you live in half. You can now take 50% of the duplex and depreciate it over 27 and a half years. You can take $10,000 of your state and local taxes are called SALT and write it off your federal return. There's all kinds of tax benefits as a result of that. So you got to watch both sides of the coin. Yep, you make a little bit of income, you save a whole lot on taxes, but net, you get ahead of the game and get to keep and control more of your own wealth.
And before you cringe and say like, oh, I'm never renting out part of my house, hear me out on this, okay? Chris, there's something called the Augusta rule.
Yep.
What the heck is the Augusta rule? Why would I?
The Augusta rule is a beautiful thing. You hear about all of these tax gurus on TikTok. You go watch three TikTok videos, and now you're a tax expert. But one of the things that if you keep looking deep enough, they talk about the Augusta rule. And what the Augusta rule is this, is if you have an LLC or a corporation or any legal entity, you can literally have a board meeting in your house with everybody there, right? And if you're smart, you live in Florida and everybody wants to come, right? And you can literally rent your house out. I think it's up to 10 days at $1,000 a day. And you get to take that rent tax-free from your LLC or the legal entity that you're using. Another nice little hack.
So Chris nor I are your CPA. We're not giving you tax advice. This is just, we're fellow real estate investors. We're sharing things that we do or that our CPA recommends to us. All of this stuff, you can literally go to irs.gov and you can see that SALT tax that Chris was just talking about. Literally, it's all right here, the limits for it. There's literally up to $250,000 worth of tax deductions you can take from one of them. Mortgage interest, instead of doing a personal mortgage, if you flip it over to being business, you can get up to $750,000 of mortgage debt that you could potentially take some tax write-offs on. There are massive, massive loopholes in the tax system. You might say, well, Nate, is that fair? It's not. It's not. But these are rules that were set up way before we ever got here, and we weren't the ones that wrote them. So, but we're definitely going to do what we feel like we need to do so that we can keep more dollars in our pocket. Cool. I'm going to flip gears on you again, Chris. I'm going to flip over to this climate change thing in just a second. Those of you that are looking for more education in this frontier, our academy, Home Invest Academy, we teach this stuff. We teach tax savings. We teach it all. Literally, if you want to check that out, go to homeinvest.com/academy. Our whole real estate backend, our processes that we do inside of our actual business, how we buy, how we save on taxes. We teach that stuff in the academy. So that's there for you, homeinvest.com/academy. Next, climate change. Could climate change wipe out $1.4 trillion in real estate value? Chris, what do you think?
Short answer, yes. And what does that mean? How could it possibly happen? Okay, so the value of anything is based on supply and demand. Low supply, high demand, high prices. High supply, low demand, low prices. Let's look at California. How much of a mass exodus do you think there's going to be from California after these insane infernos, right? People are going to leave. Why are they going to leave? Two reasons. First, they don't want their house to burn down again. Second, you know what's going to happen to insurance rates, right? They're going to go through the roof. So now that there's less demand, property values are going to come down. How is that tied to climate change? Well, ask some people, and they'll tell you because of the drought conditions and the heating of the Earth's temperature, right? Climate change, these drought conditions fed that fire. That the whole reason for it was feeding that fire. So look at another thing. Florida, Texas, all of these states that are on the ocean, hurricanes come through, bam, it's gone. Now, insurance rates are going to go up. People are going to do that mass exodus. I'm not going to get caught in that again. Let me move to North Carolina, and property values come down. So what was worth $10 trillion, 3 years ago, is now worth $6 trillion in gross real estate. And just a little fact, I think it's 80% of the total cost of national disasters or natural disasters in this country are absorbed by Florida, California, and what was the third one? Florida, California, and Texas. Sorry. So there you have it.
That's the hot states. That's why we chose Florida, right, Chris?
Exactly. That and a generator in a hurricane room.
Yes. Yes. So the climate change argument, it's been around for a long time, and it's been growing stronger in its reasoning and rationale in the last decade or so. But if you think about it, back to Al Gore, if you remember the Bush versus Gore days of politics, Al Gore was really, really big, and he got ridiculed because he was flying around a massive private jet while preaching to people about climate change. It's not something that it's not a new thing to the world, but it's just getting a louder voice as we go with time. It's funny, in the Creation Museum up in Kentucky, they have a climate change expo, and they talk about climate cycles. And if you're ever interested in looking at the cycles of the Earth through the ice ages, through hotter times of this Earth's history, there's a very good exhibit to go check out there. That's going to bring us around the corner here to the next segment. Chris, we have one of our investors here. She's looking at a deal. She's looking for a little bit of help on it. I'm going to pull her up in just a minute. So Don, if you're here, get ready. I'm going to call on you in like 4 minutes. We're going to look at this deal with you. We're going to break it down. We're going to check out what it looks like. Before I do that, those of you that are looking for a deal to invest in, I have good news and bad news. Okay. Chris, good news or bad news first?
Let's go with the bad so we can sweeten it at the end.
Okay. The bad news is that we are completely sold out on multifamily opportunity right now. Like literally, we have a wait list. We're taking people on the wait list right now. We couldn't take your money if we wanted to on multifamily. It's such a hot, desired topic right now. The good news, though, you can join the wait list. Number one, we're going to launch one as soon as we possibly can, but you have to join the wait list. The good news, though, is that we do have an industrial asset that's available. There's a little bit of room left on it, not very much, but I'm going to go ahead and just share that really quick, and then we're going to jump over to Don. Okay. So here's the deal. It is a commercial building we're buying. It's in Ohio, Midwest manufacturing facility. It's been around for 100 years, producing revenue and or profits for 100+ years. It has a Department of Defense certification. This thing is money with the current administration. So every time that you hear the word tariff, what that means is a tax on imports. Every time that American companies hear that word, they think, oh my goodness, I have to produce stuff at home, or I have to explore it at least. And so ever since November, the other facilities that we own, the other industrial assets, just like this one, they've been getting more and more orders. So every time that they say tariffs, we actually kind of applaud them in the background because we're getting more and more business. We've driven this business line up just in the last year. One of our locations alone is up by over 22% on the bottom line. Imagine that, an extra 22% profit. That's massive. If you are looking for an investment opportunity, this one's presently paying 10% fixed. So it's like secured monthly income coming to you. It is literally secured too, the same position that a bank would get a loan against the real estate or a loan against equipment. You can have a secured position in this potential investment. If you're interested in exploring this, there's only a few spots left. Use the link that you see in the chat. Sue or Dan or Doug, if you could drop that for me, I'd appreciate it. And what that will do is get you a call booked with one of these fine people right here, either Sue or Doug or Dan. These guys are all competent. They're investors themselves. They're professionals. They've invested into our deals. They know our deals backwards and forwards. So jump on with them and talk it through. Okay, Don, are you ready to rock? We're going to go through your deal if you're ready. And if Philip or CJ, if you could help me bringing Don up, if Don's ready to rock, we're going to go through the deal review that Don has for us. Oh, you brought Dan up. Dan, you kind of look like Don, your name at least, but you got brought up, you got spotlighted. We're actually going to bring Don up, D-A-W-N.
Maybe Don can raise their hand.
Yeah, good call. Don, if you're ready to rock, go ahead and raise your hands.
Oh, there's
Yeah, I got her.
Hi, Don.
she is.
Don, Sue has told us oh, there you're unmuted now. Okay, cool. So Don, Sue has told us that you own several rentals in Alabama. You sell ice, you're an entrepreneur. Yeah. And Sue said you're a super hardworking lady and you have a potential deal that you want us to take a peek at. You want to tell us about that deal? Oh, we got to get you unmuted one more time. You see the button pop up on your screen to unmute? There you go. Cool.
Am I here now? Okay.
Yay. Hi, Don.
Hey. So it's a 2-acre lot. It's in a very up and coming little, let's call it, was an intersection. Now it's booming. It is already platted. I'm going to use the phrase for zoned. The weird thing, all that happened in 2012, so it's been a while. It's zoned and platted, engineered, everything done out except for 8 units. There are 2 units that are set up. They have been completely remodeled, so it's like a 98 mobile home and a 2002, I believe. So they're asking 150,000 for it. So there's only 2 units though that are sitting there, and then the rest of the property is just kind of grown up with everything in place to do it, but it's not there. And I just have no way to judge what's an appropriate price for the property. I mean, I kind of know what my cost would be in the future to set them up, but I'm trying to determine what in a mobile home setting, what's a proper price to pay for, just a lot. So there's 6 lots I'd have to develop, 2 that are already developed.
Don, there's a lot of variables to cover on
There's
this.
a lot of variables.
Yeah. Yep. Chris, if you have any feedback that you want to throw in, you're welcome to.
So let me just give you 30-second overview, right? So you have two units there and operating?
Yes.
So
They're not, you could rent them. One, I'd have to do just a little bit too. But they're not rented. So it's just kind of weird. They're just not rented. They're just sitting there.
Okay, so you have absolutely no data. So you have to determine what your income's gonna be in order for you to
Yes.
determine what the value of the property is in commercial real estate. So
Yes.
maybe you can go back historically and get some data, look around in the area, see what rents are going.
Mhm.
So am I hearing that you're going to place units and rent it as a whole unit, or you're gonna rent the lots out?
We would like to place units there. So we would have to put in the septic tanks, the power poles, water meters, like the other 6 lots are completely undeveloped.
So there's 2 things that you've got to be concerned about is the rental income, and also you're saying it's already platted for that or zoned for that, and you've got sewage or permits for the sewage
For the
or-
septic tanks, it will
for
be septic tanks.
So, okay.
Yeah.
The other thing you gotta look at is absorption. Are you gonna be able to absorb, what did you say, 8 more units? You go there?
6 more.
6 more, are you gonna be able to absorb that in that community without issue?
Yes, the location is wonderful. I mean, it's 3 to 4 minutes away from a intersection that's just booming,
Okay, the last thing I'm gonna warn you about is stop being emotional about your financial decision. You're in love with this property.
No, I'm not. I'm really just trying to,
Okay.
I'm really kind of, the location is super great. I've always done one little spot of land at the time
Yeah.
and popped a tank and because we do have several mobile homes. I just don't know how to break down. I mean,
Just like you did with that, right? So you just take it and you multiply it times 8. So you know that how much you have to invest, right? Your total cost
Yeah.
of investment, the cost of that money, and then what's your income? And then you figure out an NOI based on your expenses, and then whether or not it'll cash flow based on your debt service. So
Yeah.
figure out what that is, and then look at the number times 6 or times 8 rather, instead of
Times 8.
times 1. You know how to do it. You've got experience with this. I think that, if it all cash flows, it's a great opportunity.
so
Don,
cash
Don,
flow.
Don, let's do that together. Chris is his brain moves like 10 times the speed of New
Yeah,
York.
I'm sorry. And I get excited too.
Chris has bought, sold, built really big companies, so his brain is like finance minded. So let's just break it down. So how much rent do you think you'll get per property or per unit on that land?
Based on what we've seen, 900 to 1,000.
Okay, I'm going to put 900 because we always want to go conservative. I'm going to do
That's fine.
900 times 8 on my calculator.
Yep.
And that's 7,200. And I'm going to multiply that by 12 because that's per year. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's about $86,000 gross income right there.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know your exact expenses on these mobile homes, but I've looked at a number of parks myself. I almost bought one about 10 years ago. And it was roughly about half of the income went towards expenses. Is it cool if we make
Yes.
that assumption for this purpose? Okay.
Yes, it would be.
I'm going to divide that 86,000 by 2. So now we're at $43,000. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road, okay? We're gonna figure out what this should be worth. I'm gonna divide this number by what I think the capitalization rate should be in that area for this kind of asset. In
Okay.
your experience, have you bumped into what capitalization rate mobile home parks should be selling for in this area?
I have not a clue. I've never looked at a park.
Okay, I'm gonna say it probably should be 9%. That can vary. Some areas are more, some areas are less, but I'm dividing that number by 9%, okay? And what it's telling me is total value is around $480,000. All in.
That includes the mobile homes in addition to the land.
Yes,
Yep.
we had almost guesstimated 450, so I guess we're close to get everything, operational.
So that's 150 for the land and then 300,000 for the rest of the units?
Hmm.
Beautiful. You might have a winner.
So just now what you want to do is double check your rent numbers, because we just did back of the napkin math, and then double check the capitalization rate in the area by looking what's actually sold. Look for some mobile home parks that have actually sold. Because if the cap rate's 11%, then that number is going to be a lot smaller. So
Okay.
yeah, but can't just go on. Chris and Nate can't give financial advice or legal advice or tax advice.
Yeah,
But hopefully that gives you a dart on the wall to start
Yes.
with.
it does. I appreciate it.
And it's beautiful. You're relatively close with your own conclusions as well. So it's just reinforcing.
Yeah, it is. I'm a little shocked.
Oh,
Okay,
have faith
thank
in
you
this
so
guy.
much.
You're welcome.
Don, pleasure having you in our network. Looking forward to working with you.
We love it. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Chris, I didn't know you were a mobile home park guru. Look at that.
Numbers are numbers.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. I suppose when you were flipping $100 million worth of offices, it was the same thing. Look
Numbers
at the
are
numbers.
You
Make
just have to
decisions.
work. And not listen, this is one of the biggest mistakes that new investors make. And I'm not saying she was by any means. A big mistake that new investors do is they get emotionally attached to a deal. Well, they fall in love with a deal because they think it's the greatest thing, and then they work the numbers backwards in their head to get to that emotional position. Don't do it. Don't fall trap.
Just go off peer logic, peer numbers. Hey, if you guys want to see what peer numbers look like in action, we do a private invite only pipeline call the first Friday of each month. And that happens to be coming up. So if you'd like to see what we're working on, the numbers behind the deals that we have, this is something that we only show to our current investors, but we're doing an open house right now. You can come and see what we're working on. We have a deal that's not released to the public yet. We're negotiating it really hard. We've entered our due diligence. We'll show you what we're looking like on numbers in that one and what our pipeline looks like for down the road. You can click the link that you see in the chat. If you're following us on social media and you don't see a link, just type link in the comment section and our team will get it over to you. Chris, anything else you want to hit today, sir?
No, sir. No, sir. That was a good.
Cool. All right, cool guys. And that deal that I showed you guys, that's for accredited investors. So what that means is that your net worth is either $1 million or more, or your income is 200K or more per year as an individual, or 300K or more per year as a married household. So that's who can participate in our deals at this juncture.
All right, now I got one more thing to say. There's a little teaser. Stand by for you non-accredited investors. We know how important you are and how important your financial freedom is as well. And we are working on a project to serve you specifically, to absolutely serve you. And if you're inside of this Zoom meeting right now, open up the chat and look at the link. Nate posted it into everyone. It's homeinvest.com/pipeline call registration. It's right there. So go ahead and grab that. It's for the people on social media that don't see that. If you're on social media, type in link. And non-accredited investors, we love you too. We're working on it. I promise.
Cool. Chris, thanks for joining. Hey, we appreciate you guys as investors and partners. Thank you for being part of our world. We'll see you either on Friday or Tuesday next week. Bye,
Cheers.
guys.